Hi, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the combat in Panzer Orders. In the last video I talked a bit about that there are two types of combat you can do. There's ranged and there's close combat. Ranged is probably the one you're going to be doing the most, and it's pretty straightforward. On each card you've got two statistics at the top. How effective the card is against either vehicles, which is the first number, and vehicles, remember, is tanks, armoured cars, half-tracks, things of that nature, and how good they are against enemy infantry. So, for example, this is a German regular infantry card. It's a 6 against vehicles and a 4 against infantry. So, if I want to target this US Airborne card here, for example, I just need to get a 4 or more on a D6 to be able to hit it. Now, before I attack with my cards, I have to declare the attacks I want to make, and I have to declare them at the same time. So I have to say, hey, I'm going to attack these two guys, these two German infantry cards are going to attack that US Airborne card, the Tiger is going to attack the Sherman Firefly card. What I can't do is I can't say, hey, he's going to attack him, and if he beats him, then this card will attack that one. You know, I have to declare them all at the same time. So I have to think carefully and weigh up my options about what attacks I want to make. Now I can, if I want to, attack the card that's face down. I don't know what the card is. There are some special cards in the game, scout cars, that can reveal those. So, for example, there's a Greyhound, which is an American armoured car, that has a special rule of recce, which means that I can roll a dice, and if I get a certain number, I can unveil it. Hey, look, it's a British infantry car, right? But you have to have those in your column to use them. Now, let's roll. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to have these two cards attack this one, right? I'll be rolling 2 dice. So I've got 2 cards, and I need to get a 4 or more. If I get a 4 or more, that card is shaken or pinned. It's the same thing, right? And it means that that card can't be used by that player in their turn. So to represent that, I simply turn it to its side. Now, if I scored 2 hits on it, the first hit would make it shaken, and the second hit would knock it out of the game, and it would go into the discard pile. But that player has a saving throw on that card, and all the cards have a saving throw. Of a standard infantry card, the saving throw is a 6. So if let's say I roll 2 dice and I get a 5 for him and I get a 6. So let's say I get a 4 for that one. Okay, I've inflicted 2 hits on that. The first hit shakens it. The second hit takes it out of the game. That player can roll 1 dice, and if they get a 6, they save that card, and it would stay at the shaken phase like that. Now, some cards have special rules that means they can re-roll their dice in combat. So, as it happens, this is a US Airborne card. The US Airborne were the elite, or some of the elite troops of the American Army. So they have a proficient rule, which means they can re-roll any misses, and they have a hardened rule, which means that when they make their saving throw, they only need a 5 or a 6 to be able to save that card. So every card's little special rules, and a lot of the cards do have special rules, are quite an important factor of combat. Close combat works exactly the same way, but it's more deadly. In close combat, I declare my close combat, and I basically say, hey, these two German infantry cards, they're going to close combat that US Airborne card. The US Airborne card can fire on one card, because it's one of those, before the close combat happens. So if he was to roll, he needs a 4, and if he rolled a 4, that would make that shaken. That card then couldn't close combat. As it happens, that US Airborne card has the proficient rule, so even if he missed, he could roll again. So they get to fire on the enemy cards as they attack, coming into close combat. Now, if any of the enemy make it through, then what happens is that you roll the dice just as before, but any hits will eliminate them from the game. So there is no shaken result as a result of close combat. So it's a way faster, deadlier type of combat. Now, what you can do in close combat is the best approach is to say, hey, he's going to fire on him, and then he's going to close combat him. So if he gets a 4, let's say he does, that card would then be shaken. He would be attacking with close combat. Because he's shaken, he can't return fire on him. He can still partake in close combat, but he doesn't get that fire shot before he actually enters close combat. So just much like, you know, World War II tactics of the day, you want to fire on the cards, get them shaken so they turn, they can't return fire as they charge in. So hopefully that gives you some base understanding of how the combat works. Like I said, a lot of the cards will have special rules on combat, either close combat or on ranged combat. For example, the sniper card, that has a special sniper rule. That means they can fire a couple of times into the column and they can re-roll as well. You know, some of the vehicles, the Tigers, they don't need to score very high to be able to knock out the enemy vehicles. The enemy vehicles work exactly the same way as the infantry. So this Tiger here against this Firefly, a 3 or more to hit it. The Firefly needs a 3 or more to hit the Tiger, but the Tiger has a +1 on its armour, so that makes that 3 or 4. So it's a 3 to score, 3 to hit it as normal, unless the modifier comes into play. So for example, this truck here, much weaker armour, so -1. If the Tiger was fighting against that, the Tiger only needs a 2 to hit it, right? So there is that. You know, when you're tactically thinking about which vehicles, which troops are going to attack and how they're going to attack, it is important that you declare your attacks up front and you've thought about what could happen to take advantage. You can obviously, as the game is about these 3 separate attack fronts, you don't want to be losing any of them, so you don't have to attack if you don't want to. Yeah, so that's to give you an overview of the combat.